Hello, my name is Teal Welling, and I'd like you to subscribe to this page. Just hit the subscribe button below, and then just to the right of that, hit the bell button, which will inform you of when I make more videos. When I post them, you'll get a notification. Hello, my name is Teal Welling, and I'm going to talk to you today about a large number of different topics. In my hand is the model, is a fictional model of is the real model of the fictional Starship Enterprise, which Gene Roddenberry, I theorize, thought of when he was standing about right here in the Roman Forum, looking this direction, which would be east-ish, with the Capitoline Hill behind him, and the Curia Julii, the Palatine Hill here, the Esquiline Hill here, Temple Caesar, Temple of Venus, and of course the Colosseum here. This subject, this is also a Freemason lodge, modeled off of King Solomon's Temple. Yeah, the worship where the worship master sits, and then the altar with the various assorted tools. There's in the connection here, and an elevated stage, and the rest of the officers in here. And then you have this riser that leads to this officer's chair, and this riser that leads to this officer's chair, and then you have the regular Masons just sit here and here. So you have King Solomon's Temple, an officer's chair. From the eastern section of the portion of the Roman Forum, farther to the east, of course, you have a little less than half or 3/4 of the Roman Forum west from here over. Somewhere around here would be the Capitoline Hill behind the fictional Enterprise. If this was an actual ship, other than a plastic toy, then it would be. If this would be set to speed, the buildings actually formed into this configuration. They got up and then they traveled 1,300 miles, give or take, later. They would be in effect touching fairly close to the Giza Pyramid, which is the farthest north. Then they would be touching the Giza Plateau and Khufu, Menkaure, Khafre, and Menkaure. Khufu being the farthest north, Menkaure being the farthest south, and Khafre being in the middle. From Giza down to the Bent is the pyramids. So if you took that, if you take this general idea, and you take this concept and apply it to Rome around 650 AD, then you have the essence. Now, down here is a subterranean lake, wetland, waterway, a wet area, an offshoot of the Tiber that's over there. So this flies down in that direction. Well, there's a waterish way here, lake-ish here. There's the Lake Nemi ships that are right over there, which is the point two of the battle. The entire battle that took place in 650 AD is about Lake Nemi the Lake Nemi and the Lake Nemi ships. But let's stick to specifics. Geometry. You have fixed point here. You have a fixed point with the pyramids 1,300 and some miles away, and then you have the sun, a third fixed point, X, Y, Z. You have X-axis, Y-axis, Z-axis. As in length, width, depth. That length, width, and depth axis of measurements width, length, depth. this information creates a very interesting dynamic. The interesting dynamic about it is that the pyramids of Egypt, have such a complicated structure that for the last several thousand years, since the Hyksos invaded and destroyed as much of the Old Kingdom as they could possibly get their hands on, which was a considerable portion of it. And then the later cultures, whatever the Hyksos couldn't find and destroy, later cultures did, including the Avaris, which are just a name-changed culture of the Hyksos. They're still the Hyksos. They just name-changed from Hyksos to Avaris. Agamemnon of the Trojan War fame, he was a Hyksos Avaris. He was a Hyksos. The Avaris are specifically from Egypt, and he was specifically from the Aegean. The word and name Greek wouldn't be coined and used for another almost full millennia, full 1,000 years. King Arthur got into a vessel, and that was associated with the Lady of the Lake. Got into a vessel, and left. So you have configuration of a vessel, configuration of a Masonic lodge, King Solomon's Temple, and then you have it traveling down to the pyramids, which have been known from the first second of their existence. The pyramids have been known for having something to do with resurrection from death back into life. In fact, that's one of the reasons why the bodies were so well preserved, there was an assumption that the pharaohs were going to return back to their bodies, and they were going to need all those equipment, all their stuff. So their internal organs were put in canopic jars, and all kinds of others. This, that, and the next thing was they had a fully prepared afterlife in their tomb. Although a tomb, a mastaba, and a pyramid are not anywhere near the same thing. Pyramid is just a pyramid. It's a religious temple. A mastaba is a place where you put dead bodies, and there are every example of pyramids. There's not a single body found in any single solitary one of them within the 1,000 years after they were built. There are several bodies after they were put there by the Hyksos and the Avaris, but there was none at the time. There's entire civilizations that have been born, lived, done some amazing amount of stuff, both amazing good and amazing bad, and died in the whole that is created by the end of the Hyksos, the Hyksos invasion of Egypt, the end of the Old Kingdom's time that built the pyramids, and when the 18th dynasty finally was expelled from Egypt by the Avaris Hyksos, for several years after Agamemnon, Akhenaten, Amenhotep IV was killed, died of old age, and his crippled teenage son took over with the strong help of his mother / half-sister or partial sister or full sister, which would be Meritaten, who her other son, Theseus, went on to become king of Athens after he renamed it to Athens, after he named it after his mother, Meritaten, the ATEN part of it. The ATEN. The ATEN is the point. In the headdress of many Egyptian deities, they have a headdress that includes the ATEN, a circle. Many of those deities in the entrance temple to the pyramids are depicted at 10, 15, 20, 30 feet tall in the entrance temples that have long since been obliterated from history. Well, if you apply the ATEN, which is a representation of the sun disk, the measurements, XYZ measurements, one of them is the ATEN. If you apply that, then the disk is both a disk and an excessively likely, based on the equations involved, the sun disk is also an Einstein-Rosen bridge. So if you have an Einstein-Rosen bridge at the end of this, at 1,300 miles after the eastern side of the Roman Forum, you extend it that way, what you have is you have a bunch of pyramids that are also prisms. A prism is a device where the light enters the light as a whole thing, as a white light comes into one thing, and a prism splits it. It creates a rainbow effect, Reggie Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. It splits it quite a lot. Now, when you're dealing with the pyramids, you got some sometimes it can be defined as extremely complicated situations going on. Now, most people are drawn to the pyramids themselves as amazing things, and they are, no doubt about it. The pyramids are incredible, incredible things. But what is usually ignored is the causeways. In fact, almost the entire causeway sections of all 16 of them have been entirely obliterated, except for just a few feet, maybe a few hundred feet. Well, most of the causeways have been obliterated for the last 4,000 years, which is a huge nasty thing, because the causeways are actually more impressive engineering than the pyramids, and the pyramids are legendarily impressive. But from just off angle, you can get just off of midday, you're going to start getting some shadow and prism effect. So the sun is going to come through the pyramids, and they're mostly quartz, so there's going to be a lot of light reflection and crystalline structures, because the pyramids are made of granite and limestone, which is anywhere between 75 and 99% quartz, depending on the density of that specific mineral, that specific rock, that specific carved piece of material. You're going to have a lot of prisms going on. Well, so you have light splitting with the pyramids, and different aspects of light splitting with the pyramids. And in fact, if you look at Khufu does not have 4 sides. Khufu has 8 sides. There's many prism. It's made of 4 mini prisms. The tapered prisms. It's 4 tapered prisms. They're wide at the top, and then they come to a point wide at the bottom, and they come to a point at the top. But prisms nonetheless that they are. So therefore, you have several different aspects of bent light that are pouring in. That bent light is pouring into the entrance temple. It's pouring into the deity with the headdress that's the ATEN. That's both the sun, a representation of the sun, and a representation of an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Which, if you look at it in another way, the Einstein-Rosen bridge and the newt, shoe, and gabe is the structure, that aspect of Egyptian mythology and Egyptian writing. They were not writing about divine beings, they were writing about the functionality and structure of an Einstein-Rosen bridge, just using different words and different things to mean the same exact calculations and exact equations that we use now then. So they had an excessively good idea of what an Einstein-Rosen bridge was 4,000 years before those two great-great-grandparents would be born. To be specific, okay, if you have the functionality of being able to understand the dividing light using a prism, and you have fixed points of funerary temples, and those entrance temples have the ATEN, have a deity with a headdress with an ATEN. And that ATEN is both fixed point and an Einstein-Rosen bridge. And then you add the overall structure, the internal structure, and then the foundation, newt, shoe, geb. You have that structure. That is a covered bridge. That the way they are oriented at base is a covered bridge, a bridge with an internal structure and a solid base. Einstein-Rosen, an electromagnetic Einstein-Rosen bridge, otherwise known as a wormhole. So if you have the from the top from the geodetic pyramid down to the bent pyramid. Now the bent pyramid is bent, obviously, because that's where the name comes from. Well, if you look at a rainbow, the exact angles necessary, the exact degrees necessary for RG-BIV is here. The exact opposite angles is here. So you have Roy G-BIV and Roy G-BIV. So Roy G-BIV meet at the center. So you have a double rainbow going on within the structure of the bent pyramid. Add to that is the fact that double rainbow can be defined as Janus, the Roman deity of basically the thing that is the schema, the idea, the concept, the very foundation of the culture of Rome itself is Janus. The double spines, the Siamese twins of Janus. One face looking east, one face looking west. The face looking east would be defined in modern culture as Baby New Year, and since this is the end of October, of December, we're about to come up to the Gregorian New Year. And the Gregorian New Year comes from Pope Gregor, based off the mathematics that were done 50 years before then by Leonardo da Vinci when he was under house arrest at the Vatican. From 1497 to about 1512, when the French government and French army came down and said, "We're taking our boy, hope you don't mind," and the Vatican went, "What if we do mind?" And the French army went, "Attention!" And the French king said, "Attention!" And the French army said, "Sir, yes, sir. What do you need, sir?" And the Vatican's army went, "We're outnumbered about 400 to 1. So this ain't gonna work. So let's not fight the situation right here, right now, because this is a really bad idea to fight this situation right here, right now. So, go along your merry way, but you can never come back to Italy like Leonardo da Vinci would ever want to come back to Italy. They tried to kill him 4 times, 5, 6, 7 times unofficially. 4 official, 6 or 7 unofficially. So you have Leonardo da Vinci is the only one capable of doing the mathematics to be able to hand it to the Vatican to be able to fix the Gregorian calendar. By that time, by the end of the 1400s, early 1500s, the Julian calendar was off by like 3 months. Add another 50 years and it was off by several more days than 3 months or 4 months. So Pope Gregor in the 1558-ish, circa, he ordered the adaptation of the changes, but instead of calling it the Da Vinci calendar, he called it his own name, Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar we operate from now. So you have the calendar. Every single solitary day of that calendar, the sun's position in its orbit around the sun's position as the Earth orbits around the sun, the Earth's position changes in direct relationship with the sun, which means that the prism, all those dozens and dozens of prisms, that light that then prisms through the pyramid to the entrance temple, hits the ATEN, and prisms through the ATEN. Now, from the Geoffroy pyramid to the Bet pyramid, the double rainbow, then you can apply the same concept from the Geoffroy pyramid down to the midpoint, and from the Bet pyramid back up to the midpoint. Have the double rainbow. Well, that wedge is there in existence, and it's a 9-degree it's a 9-degree wedge. But what is more important than that 9-degree wedge is the following information. Wherever this, say Khufu's causeway, Khufu's causeway goes this direction. Well, essentially, the causeway of Khufu comes out from Khufu, and then there's an entrance temple way back, a mile away or so. Wherever the thing is, wherever it starts in this configuration, wherever it goes, other causeways will cross it. Well, that causeway has a color. When you apply the colors of Roji Biv backwards and forwards, in Julian and Janus configuration, when you apply that configuration, the Band Pyramid, Rome, Freud came up with the concept of the self, the ego, the id, and the superego. Well, you have one skull facing west, one skull facing east, and some kind of a ghost, spiritual, a divine presence here. But if you follow the spine up through, and then extend it 1,300 miles that direction, this line that's created by the spinal cord up through the middle of the skull of the east facing face of Janus of the pyramids, then you're going to bisect the very center of the Roman Forum west, of the western side of the Roman Forum, through that 1,300 some miles away. As you do that, as you do that work, that Rome takes on the characteristics of a quantum cognition, a quantum consciousness. Okay? So there's a massive amount of stuff going on here. The prisms allow for a continuity situation. You have the quantum consciousness, and then you have the other Freud stuff with the heads. With that application in mind, you then have the Starship Enterprise come down, and then as it is involved with the pyramids and all those prisms and that kind of stuff, the Jaded, the Enterprise, is in fact, the entire ship is based off of the Jaded, the warp core. The warp core powers the warp engines, which then allow for faster than light travel. Faster than 186,000 miles per second, or 300,000 kilometers per second. The Jaded is an Egyptian concept. Those causeways, mind you, whatever their color is at the very western portion of it, from the pyramid out down that causeway, that line, if you take the Janus, Roji Biv, and it meets in the middle. Wherever those 16 causeways are in this double Roji Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Wherever the causeway is and whatever direction it goes into, that the causeway and the direction it goes into, this color becomes the color of this causeway. So you take this wherever this causeway starts, being at, say, indigo. The indigo, the north indigo aspect, and by the way, there's also other reasons to have it. This Roji Biv from Jadef right down to the middle would be a representation of the northern, the lower kingdom of Egypt, and part of the pharaoh's crown, of the double pharaoh crown. The south part, from the bed to the middle, that would be Upper Egypt, and the other part of the pharaoh's crown. Pharaoh's crowns are obviously round, so there's a direct connection with the ATEN right then and there in the pharaoh's crown. But there's more than one crown. In fact, there's more than two. You have the band, and you have this part, and then you have the inside part. So you have, then you have, of course, that little weird tongue, which that little weird tongue can actually literally be an odd reference to an Einstein-Rosen bridge. So you have all kinds of things going on all at the same time. In addition to all that, so if you set this Causeway's color at whatever this is, and it goes and it jets off this direction, well, no matter what colors that it bisects, and it crosses along the way, it keeps its base color and then mixes with the colors along the way. For instance, the Bent Pyramid's causeway is sharply goes up sharply, and it bisects the cave underneath the Cave of the Nativity. So as the Bent Pyramid's causeway goes up sharply, it is deep red, almost brown red, because it's almost out of the spectrum. So it crosses all the rest, all the other colors. It crosses in Reggie Biv, and then reverse on its way to King Solomon's Temple. As it does that, it picks up all the other colors, and it picks up all the other colors in exact opposite sequence. So you have many different mixtures of colors in that Einstein-Rosen bridge from the ATEN in the headdress of the deity that was present. So you have a lot of equations going on where scientists and linguists and etymologists and such thought it was just weird prayers and weird, like the Lord's Prayer said over, in a Catholic situation. Well, I'm starting to think, based off of the physical evidence of the stuff that they left behind, and they left it behind with thousands, tens of thousands of examples, and miracle and amazing wonders of the ancient world that are still in existence, and you can still go into the King's Chamber right here, right now, 4,500 years after construction was finished, even though you're 100 feet or so in the air. The floors are solid. The Queen's Chamber is completely solid 4,500 years later. The subterranean chamber is also completely solid all these 4+ millennia later. So you have so many things that are all very hard real. The funerary temples that are still in existence, they are all very real. So you have all this stuff. Now if you apply the funerary prayers and change them to physics equations, quantum physics equations, then the chances that Egyptology, those funerary prayers, are actually aspects of the Einstein-Rosen bridge. At this point in time, with all this, with building the pyramids took 500 years. They stretch over 300 square miles. Modern science, modern academics only found in the last 15 years. Our science came up to the point where we can prove that existed 15 years ago. But it took the International Space Station and excessively high digital photography and big computers to be able to crunch all the numbers, and ground crews doing GPS orientations, and satellites with GPS, and various assorted other aspects. There's like 200 or 300 disciplines of science and engineering and such that had to come together to be able to build tools in order to be able to have those tools advanced enough, have generation after generation after generation of those tools advanced enough to be able to assemble measurement tools to be able to prove this existed. They built it, and our tools just came up to the point where we then proved what they built. Imagine how much more advanced they were than we are, based off the fact that they built it in the first place and didn't worry about the fact that they had to prove that it existed. They just built it. The Bent Pyramid, its causeway bisects the cave underneath the cave where the King Solomon's temple used to be, where the Temple Mount is now, and it's only 270 miles away. The Jeded Isis pyramid, which is just south of the Pep and the first pyramid, that causeway bisects the cave under the Church of the Nativity, which is the rumored birthplace of Jesus Christ. That causeway is about 15 miles less long, because not 15, but it's about 7 to 8 miles less long because it's farther north. But it's also the Bethlehem is also a couple miles south of Jerusalem, or at least what the cities used to be called Jupiter, which matters a huge amount because the materials that make up the Colosseum come from King Solomon's temple. King Solomon's temple was ordered to be torn down, all the supplies shipped to Rome, and then reassembled making a brand new, fantastic, awesome, wonderful, incredibly advanced, brand new El Bethel on the City of Pillars that was right here. Well, that City of Pillars became the ire, that became the absolute rage point for the evil priest Paul, and he ordered it destroyed. Well, it was destroyed, and he then rebuilt his palace. He then built out of the materials of this, the materials from King Solomon's temple that used to be the Temple of Jupiter. Right here, you have. By the way, Jupiter is also the planet Jupiter is also a baby sun. It's not, and at some point in the next several million years, it will ignite and hit fusion, and it will go from a pretend mini solar system to an actual mini solar system. But it's going to have to absorb Saturn and Uranus and some other stuff first, and it becomes complicated. So you have a baby sun, a to-be-born light being, Christian light being. So you have the materials from King Solomon's temple were most likely turned into the palace of the Domus Aurea, the palace of Nero, and then when Vespasian came in, he had that palace destroyed and used the same materials to build the Colosseum. So it is not unfair to say that the Colosseum is literally King Solomon's temple. You have the Colosseum here, and here you have the Temple of Jupiter. So you have a major temple of Jupiter here, and a major temple of Jupiter here. And Jupiter, according to the mathematics, is a baby sun that will hit fusion at some point in the next several million or so years. So there's some interesting quantum physics, quantum astrophysics. There's some interesting stuff going on here, which makes things even more interesting. Now, in addition to all that, so you have if you do have equations in those prayers, they're not prayers, they're mathematical equations disguised as prayers to make sure that the enemy doesn't come in, follow, and destroy. If those prayers are actually quantum physics equations, then Egyptology has a lot of work ahead of it, translating all that stuff into its mathematical format, and seeing how much they understood about quantum physics, astrophysics, physics, and all kinds of other interesting and dimensional physics, possibly some kind of a quantum cognition equations. There would be a lot of very interesting information to be sought at in that structure. So what if you were able to fictionally or realistically you enter the temple, you do the pyramid thing, you do whatever ceremonies and such involved with the pyramid thing, and then as you exit, you've done the boomerang effect. As you come out, somehow the ATEN of the headdress of the deities is activated. The physical headdress the physical ATEN that was in a lot of, if not most of the entrance temples, what if you could activate some kind of electromagnetic stabilized? If you go to those causeways, most of them, if not all of them, have a destination temple. There's a destination, and at least a couple of them still in existence 4,000 some years later still have a circle as some aspect, some part of their construction. You can still see some aspects of the circle in their construction. So you have a lot of, I mean, right now the Islamic mosque is made in a circle. The building is circular. The roof is circular. Hagia Sophia is circular. Although I don't know if there's not a causeway that bisects the Hagia Sophia, but the architecture is there. So you have, and it doesn't need to be a straight, straight line to straight, the circle, and you go through the bridge to the other circle, and you come out. There's no reason why it has to be that way, because the tongue is that little thing on the pharaoh's headdress is curved, so it doesn't mean you have to actually come out a perfect 90 degrees from where you went in. I mean, you don't have to come out from a flat. You enter at XYZ and you come out at XYZ, the same exact XYZ, because obviously you can't come out there, because if it's more than a couple hundred miles, there's going to be a bend in the planet, and that bend means that you can't go straight. It means that you actually have to, you come out here and you exit there, or you come out, or even more of a bend, you enter here and you come out there, because it's farther away. More of a bend, more of a distance. What shows that this information could be true is because of the prisms, the light, the prisms, and the extremely complicated engineering of the sun, the 300 square miles of the pyramids, and the city of Rome itself, the Forum, being a couple miles long and a mile wide. Those three fixed point to measure to and from allow for both macro and micro applications of mathematics to have extremely precise navigation. The pyramids are at this point growing in intensity of infinitely more complicated than they have been given credit for the last 4,500 years, and they've been thought of to be extremely, excessively, and incredibly complicated. And I'm adding information saying you don't know nothing yet. There's prisms involved, which it's impossible to prove to disprove the fact that the pyramids are prisms. It's impossible to prove that there wasn't an odd in headdresses. It's impossible to prove there wasn't causeways. It's impossible to disprove the fact that the materials used were more than 75% quartz, and when you have heat and cold, as in thermodynamics, when the sun comes up, it's going to expand the eastern side, which means it compresses the western side. Well, when quartz compresses, it releases electricity. So you have hundreds of tons of quartz that's being compressed. Well, it's going to build up electricity. What do you do with electricity? In fact, there's many researchers who are completely convinced that the pyramids have something massively to do with electricity. Well, what they had to do with electricity, very possibly creating some kind of a stabilized wormhole, a stabilized faster than light travel between point A and point B, no matter how far away point B is. Go into the temple, and you enter the stabilized or meant horizon, and then exit at King Solomon's temple, or Babylon, or the city of Eridu, or one of a thousand other places, one of a dozen other places that you can emerge from. Now, Greek and Roman mythology also includes this concept in it. You have Pan and his nymphs. Well, if you look at those circles, then you have a type of fertility nymph situation, which adults can figure out what I mean, and that's the end of that conversation. So you have 16 circles, you have 16 ATENs that applied to, when they're applied metaphorically to a wood nymph. Then you have that, and of course you have the pan flute, which is not entirely, and there's about 16-ish, give or take, pan flute things. So you have a direct reference to a direct symbolic reference to the Einstein-Rosen bridge in the pan flute, and you have Pan, who has legs and going in both directions, and with Siamese you do have legs going in a couple different directions, and you have you have interesting destinations that are in line with that situation. So you have all kinds of really cool stuff, and it comes down to the science is difficult to at this point to disprove that there's not something here to research further. And also going into those Egyptian prayers and not seeing them, instead of seeing them prayers, seeing those Egyptian funerary inscriptions as mathematical equations that have been ignored for 4,500 years. Well, 4,000 years. So that's my newest work. That's my newest research. That is the last 24 hours discoveries. Thank you very, very much to my friends and family for helping me with these discoveries. Most specifically, thank you very much to, I have a really good friend in Tulsa who helped a lot with the sequences of ideas. She helped with a great deal over the last several months and years. So don't forget to sign on don't forget to subscribe to this page, and of course hit the little bell, because the little bell will let you know when I do my next video. And if you could like this, hit the thumbs up and like this, because if you like it, you subscribe, hit the bell and like this, then it allows more understanding of what you do and what you do not like. So thank you so much.